Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. No, this time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
What's up, y'all? Is my volume right? Let's just double check that. Boom. I don't know. Sounds all right to me. Let's do it. Hey, Blunty, how are you?
Good, Joshua. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm gonna pull my volume down. I don't know why it sounds so loud. How's that? Talk.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
I think I'm
Testing.
still a little louder than you. We definitely prep for this stream. We don't just I noticed in the last stream there's a couple things to catch up on at the beginning of the stream. One is I noticed at the last stream some people were like that my breathing was super loud, and I went back and listened to it and it was, and it's because I had a compressor on my audio to try to normalize the volume of my voice, but it was also pulling up the background noise to be super loud. So I've got the compressor off, but now my volume levels aren't right. People are saying I'm always louder than you, Paul Fornage says. So I definitely try to equalize the audio. I do not want to disrespect you there, Blunty.
It's
Now you're gonna
okay.
be louder.
Hopefully we're around the same level, but
Yeah.
it's not as easy as it looks, people. That's for sure.
Right, I mean, I'm looking at the stupid levels meters, and they look the same, but I need a sound guy. Alex, there's one other thing that I want to get out of the way, and that is, Blunty, some people, I don't have a clip to play, but some people in the comments of last week's live stream thought that I shushed you. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, I heard all about it.
Yeah. And what happened was I was getting ready to play. There's a little bit of delay, so it's a little bit of a challenge to not talk over you. I was getting ready to play a YouTube video, and I hit play right as you began to talk. And the YouTube video started to play, and I didn't have the audio muted. And I said I talked to inanimate objects. I talked to my computer. So I said to the YouTube video, shush, right as I hit the mute button. And then you stopped talking because I was interrupting you. and people thought that I shushed you. And I just wanted to say I would never. That would be so rude and disrespectful. I didn't. And I hope that you didn't read it that way.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it until I was told later that it happened. So
yeah,
I definitely didn't notice. I don't think you were shushing me. So
okay,
it is what it is.
Yeah,
yeah.
People in the comments, they were like, I was so disappointed, and you really let me down, Joshua, that you would speak so disrespectfully to Blunty. I agree. I wouldn't. I didn't. Anyway. I only talk that disrespectfully to my computer. You can go back. Drone Racer says, I'm not buying it. You can go back. Because I was like, what are you talking about? I shushed Blunty. I wouldn't. And then I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh, I did. I see what happened. Because I was like, did I shush you? Like, for a minute, I didn't realize what happened either. And then I realized the video started playing.
All of these views are my own. I have not been coached into anything.
That's right, Blunty. You agree, don't you?
Absolutely. No.
Oh, Blunty, he's gone. I don't know where he went. Anyway, I just wanted to get it out of the way because some people, I just wanted to make sure, nobody thought I was disrespecting you. And now it's done. So, thank you guys for coming out to the stream. I am I'm just not together today, man. I have to have the camera a little different because I'm not centered up like I usually am when we're on the news. Anyway, but yeah, blink twice if you need help, Blunty. Now don't blink twice. Thank you guys so much for coming out to the live stream. We're going to be doing the news. Jacob agrees with me. That did happen. We've got some news lined up, and I think we probably have some more leaks, some more leaks about the DJI FPV system. Am I right, Blunty?
Yeah. No, I think it's finally over. I think it is finally over. So
yeah,
but we'll talk about what we know about it. Hopefully, we don't spend the whole show on it, but I think if we're going to talk about DJI FPV. In one show, then I think it's going to be this show. So be prepared.
Yeah, I mean we have to talk about it tonight, and we don't. And then hopefully after tonight, we can not go back to not talking about it anymore, except maybe periodically. But we are going to talk about it tonight. What else have we got though? Other than the DJI drone, what other news items have we got tonight, Blunty?
So we're going to talk about the BetaFPV LiteRadio 2 SE. There was a short period where those had some issues, and there's a way to fix that. So we'll talk about how to do that and why you might want to do that. Insta360 has teased a new camera that fits in the palm of your hand. And it looks like it's the Insta360 Go 2. So we'll talk about the specs on that and what that's going to offer. We've got...
Okay, I'm not gonna interrupt you. Sorry, that's rude. But I am gonna pause this comment to make sure I get it. Go ahead, Bunty.
Okay. There's a pushback on the 107 timing, so we'll quickly explain why you might want to make sure you're good on all your 107 timings and tests. We've got a community spotlight. Pawel Spychalsky's taken a state of the hobby survey, so we'll talk about that survey and put that down in the comments for you in the description.
Yeah,
we'll talk about the DJI FPV drone, of course, because that came out. We're going to talk about the V2 goggle antennas. Looks like Hugo has done some testing on those, and maybe they're not LHCP.
They may not be what they're advertised as.
DJI is in court over a motion controller, the same motion controller that has come out today with the drone. So we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, we've got a story about MIT. They're developing some new drones that are like flies.
Yeah.
Little fly-like drones. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Before we get into that, I do want to address this question from Zedarek. Some of you may remember months ago, perhaps, I had on the back desk, you can't see it because I got the split screen. I had on my bench a box that said, secret DJI drone from DJI, do not show on live stream. And I just left it back there on the bench and didn't mention it. And then when someone noticed it, I jumped up and acted freaked out and then moved it off camera and then came back. And Zadarek is wondering, was that the actual? Yes, it was. That actually was the box with FPV Drone in it. That's the next layer of the joke. It was actually in there. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Getting a bunch of questions about the DJI drone. We're going to save that for a little later in the stream, so I hope you guys will stick around. We don't usually do Q&A, but this time perhaps we'll take a few more questions just because it's a hot new product that people want to know about. But let's start off with this, the BetaFPV LiteRadio 2 fix. Is that where we're starting, Blunty?
Yeah, so we'll talk about this real quick. So it looks like there was a series of BetaFPV LiteRadio 2 SEs made that for some reason cannot bind with XM Plus or SPI receivers, even if they're on the right ACCST firmware. Because the XM Plus is maybe on the wrong thing, but this is even on the right firmware. So basically, BetaFPV figured out what happened. There was some manufacturing issue from the 22nd of December to the 4th of January. It looks like Newbie Drone got a lot of these. I know they posted this fix, and a couple other places did. So if you have this issue where you cannot bind to an XM Plus or SPI receivers with your LiteRadio 2 SE, this is that fix, and this firmware should fix that for you.
Yeah, key things. This is not the regular LiteRadio. It's the LiteRadio 2 SE, and it doesn't affect everybody. So don't just flash this firmware update as a matter of course. Only if you're unable to bind to XM Pluses. Of course, there's another news item we covered on a previous news, which is that the XM Pluses have started shipping with ACCSD firmware 2.1, which means that they won't bind to a lot of third-party radios. I'm sorry. People are talking in the Discord and they're referring to the Cord Chan. The Discord channel. No, stop. Anybody who refers to it as the Cord Chan in Discord is getting a 24-hour mute. Anyway, sorry, can't. Okay, boomer. Yeah, I am a boomer. I'm not actually a boomer, but. All right, so we got that. That's important if you have that. But there's not much more to say about that, right? Just flash that firmware if you have that radio. That radio sucks, says David M. Ouch.
Mixed reviews, that's for sure. Gimbal, lots of gimbal issues.
Yeah, funny you say that because who is it? It was right there. Someone said, "What do you do about jittery gimbals on
it's like
that
Matthew
radio?"
Vega. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a soldering issue, Blunty? I think I've heard that there's the solder joints are bad.
I think so, but I know that either they're ripping up pads or something because they've basically been sending people out gimbals to replace on their radios or sending people out new radios and they're having to change the gimbals out. So it seems like it's also, some issue that's not just super fixable by resoldering the gimbals you already have.
I'm so annoyed because I tested one of those and mine was good. It's always a challenge as a reviewer, especially when there's a new product out and it doesn't have a history, to say, well, I mean, I think this is a good product, but I can't know whether, it has a 25% failure rate or something. I just have to test what I'm given. And then, as time goes on, you find out. But when I reviewed that, I was like, this is a pretty good freaking radio. It is. Except that it turns out it has a massive failure rate. So what can you do?
Nistax in the chat says, okay, Boomer triggered my Google Assistant.
I like to occasionally on a live stream go, Alexa, turn off the lights. Someone in chat just had their lights turn off. That's a dick move, but every so often. Shady, I see you in the pleb chat, man. I read comments from everybody, not just patrons in the Discord, not just super chats, by the way. I should keep an eye on super chats. There have been a few. But especially for the news stream, we don't do quite as much Q&A interaction. We just try and do the news. Speaking of the news, Blunty, you have found something, and I want to be really clear. A while back, Insta360 reached out to me and said, do you want to see our new camera? And they did this once before, and it was the Insta360 One X2, and I didn't think it was a bad camera. It's not a drone camera. I didn't think it was a good fit for my channel. They sent it to me, and I didn't review it. And I felt really bad about that. So when they said, do you want to see our new camera? I said, well, can you tell me more about it before I agree to review it? Because maybe I won't like it. And it was this. So I'm gonna let you do this segment because they sent me some info about it and they said please keep this proprietary. But you found this information. You did. I didn't. You just like I found this information. I was like, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, they teased the new camera, and unfortunately, they did not secure their website very well. So one of the Discord users on your Discord, Alf D, went through and basically pried out some info. So we basically got all the specs right out of their website.
There you go. We're looking at it now on the paste bin.
Yeah. So a lot of people are going to ask, what's the resolution? What's the bit rate? So the big thing to start off is 1440p, 50 frames per second, 80 megabit per second bit rate. HDR. I think those are pretty killer.
You've got this written down here, so let me just put this up on the chat. Yeah, killer specs. Assuming that leak is true. If you, I declined to review this because I tested the Insta360 Go. I thought the Insta360 Go was super cool, but it didn't like grab me. Like Zorro loves his Insta360 Go. He flies it all the time and he makes great content with it. But it just didn't grab me, you know? And so I thought, you know, if I flew the Insta360 Go, I would be so excited about the Insta360 Go too. But I don't. So I was just like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. Do you fly the Insta360 Go?
I don't. This might be the first like action cam I actually buy and like start building into quads. I think this is really cool. I think this is like the right form factor for me. It's less than an ounce still. It's just a slight bit bigger than the old Go in a couple dimensions. Yeah, it's got that high bit rate, the 80 megabit per second bit rate. It's got 1440p 50. It's got 28 gigs of onboard storage. They upped the clip size. The lowest clip size at the best quality settings and everything is 10 minutes. You get 20 minutes of battery at the best settings on everything. It's got IPX8.
20 minutes.
Yeah, IPX8 water protection, so you can immerse it. It's got aquavision to clean up the underwater view. They've done a lot of things on this, I think, to really like make a lot of features that people would want. So to me, this is like, I might pick this up.
Nice. The Insta360 Go was the genesis of a great camera with a lot of flaws, but it was so good at what it was that people still love it and use it. Like what other high def cameras could you possibly put on a 1S tiny whoop, a 65 millimeter whoop?
Right.
So this one, seems like they've gone a lot of good directions. So
the other thing we didn't mention is it does come with a lens guard now. I saw a lot of people crack their inner lens on the Go, and it has ND filters you can swap that guard out for. So
nice. Yeah, ND makes things look smoother for sure. So Insta360, secure your website, and I had nothing to do with this. Technically, I didn't sign the NDA. They sent me the info, and then they said, "Oh, by the way, please keep this confidential." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they were like, "Could you sign an NDA?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got it." But none of this came from me anyway. So, okay. Something's going on with 107. If you have a 107 that is like expiring soon, then you're gonna be in trouble. What's going on with 107s, Blunty?
Yeah, it sounds like I think already it's the case that your 107 is technically expired. They
Mine?
published this. I think anyone who is basically people who were going to become non-current at the end of February, were going to have a new way to be current at the beginning of March. But they've pushed back that method for currency, like the change in law that whatever was going to happen for the recurrent training, to the 16th of March. So if you are relying on that training or that recurrency, you need to make sure that you're re-upping because you're not like covered under this like thing that was supposed to happen for the recurrency training.
Does that mean that if your 107 was due to expire at the end of February, you are now not actually valid as a 107 until you do the re-up?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So let's say you're...
Basically, I think Vic Moss's quote on it, he messaged us about it, and he said, overall, it's not horrible that this change happened, but it puts people who will become non-current at the end of February in a bad place. They won't announce until Friday, but they become non-current on Monday. So that was yesterday. Not enough time to get a new URG test under the belt. So it sounds like you would have had to do this before the 1st of March to be qualified and classified to like still hold it.
So
I'm
it
not a
means that
107 pilot. So.
if you're a pro pilot, like you're a real estate agent or you're a motion picture guy and you have a job like this week or next week, you technically are not actually legal. You're probably going to go do it anyway and F it. But until you do that recertification on the 16th or thereafter, you're actually not a 107.
Yes. So definitely check into that if you're flying under a 107. That's
yeah.
for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, probably that won't matter. But if you're doing any commercial, mine doesn't expire. I'm fine. Mine didn't expire on February. I'm fine. I was going to say I do 107 flights all the freaking time. I could be in trouble. Somatic FPV wants to know, what does this mean for me if I'm taking my 107 in an hour? Doesn't mean anything. I think that's right, Blunty. It only affected people who are going to recertify at the end of their certification, not new people testing this week.
Yeah, Vic Moss says due to the administration's new ability to review all new rules, the DOT has pushed back the timing of the initial 107 test and the online recurrent training. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to take that initial 107 test or not. I assume if they will give it to you in an hour, then you'll be able to take it and it will count. Yeah. I don't imagine you'll be able to take a fake test. But he does say that the initial 107 test might be delayed until the 16th because they have like a pushback for the DOT.
I see. Oh, that's more significant than I thought. However, Somatic FPV, if you're taking your 107 in an hour, I mean, at this point, I would show up at the test site. But if you show up and they say, we can't give you the test, good thing you were watching the news and you knew it was coming. You'll know why. Most likely, they'll just give you the test. Those guys down at the airport don't give a crap, right? The president said not to give you this test. They're just going to give you the test, and then you probably figure it out later. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm just making that up. It seems true. To me. That's all it takes. Tiago Ramos says, some clients require certification to shoot the footage. Yeah, I mean, you've got your 107 cert. I mean, I guess you could get in trouble. I mean, technically, like for insurance reasons, if you're flying on like a motion picture set and you crash into somebody's head, and it turns out you didn't have a 107, the insurance is not going to take the insurance will take any excuse to reject you. So it could be a bigger deal than maybe I'm making it out to be.
Yeah, I think the main thing is just make sure that you're paying attention. If you've got your 107, and make sure that it hasn't, you're all within these kind of guidelines. That's for sure.
All right. All right. Well, we are close to talk. We're gonna have to talk about the DJI drone a lot because we're only like 25 minutes into the show. Sounds like a perfect time to get some of these super chats out of the way. One of the super chats asked, what happens if I super chat before the stream? It just goes into the queue and I read it. Thank you for $2. The other super chat is from Jack Animations. Thanks for £5. Jack, love your videos. You inspired me to get into FPV and I hope your day's going well. My day's going extremely well because my, we were talking about this before the stream, Blunty. My DJI FPV video is just blowing up. It's at like 55,000 views since this morning, which is, for me, that's an extraordinary number. It's just nice to see analytics go up, but it's also nice to know that people are appreciating, hopefully, the content that I made. So, super sad.
Yeah, it was a good review. That's for sure.
Thank you. You blinked twice if I made you say that. No. Let's see. Next one is a community spotlight where we focus on a project being done by somebody in the community. And this one is being done by Pawel Spychalsky. He is one of the lead, if not the lead, iNav developer. And he is doing a survey about the state of the RC hobby. And there's a link to this survey down in the video description below, down in the show notes. And it would be great if everyone would take this survey. So I actually haven't done it yet. So let's see. In the last 3 months, I've been flying certainly 5-inch, certainly 4-inch. I don't know if I've flown a 6 or an 8-inch in the last 3 months. We're going to go with that. I fly FPV only. I use the following RC links. Yeah. Not really. No. Yes. 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 No, I got to be honest. No. But I'm going to. I got that new Happy Model Express LRS, so.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to be trying that out.
That's 900 megahertz, right?
It is. That's right. Radio Master, Jumper. My radio it's mostly Radio Master. I have a Tango 2, and I have a DJI transmitter, and my FPV system is both analog and DJI. And yeah, Fat Shark Sharkbite 2. What is other? I don't think there is any other, but there you go. Wi-Fi based. Oh no, there's more. Oh, there's more pages. All right. Well, I'm not going to take any more time on the live stream to finish the survey. But if you want to go down to that link, I'm sure Pavel Spychalsky would certainly appreciate it. And you can see the results. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, we will share those once that's finished. Probably back on the next news when those are done.
Great idea.
So we'll let you guys know what came out of that. So definitely let us know.
Awesome. Thank you, Pavel. I don't know what his intent is. Maybe he's just curious, but it'd be really interesting. Yeah, it's only one more page, Marcos, but I'm not going to take more time on the live stream for that. So, okay. Alrighty. Well, that brings us to what might be the most interesting item of today. The DJI FPV drone is here. There are a whole bunch of little subtopics we could talk about. And if you guys want to like read the specs, you can certainly go to the product page or check out somebody's review, maybe mine. But I want to talk to you, Blunty. I just want to talk to you about it, our thoughts about it. Let me ask you first. What did you think it was going to be? And then did it live up to your expectations or let you down? And like, what do you think of it?
I think that originally I thought that it was going to be worse than it is. And I think it has exceeded the original expectations. And it's about what I felt we heard in the last month or so that it was going to be. Like, I felt like we landed about where I expected us to land. I think a lot of people are disappointed and a lot of people are excited on both sides. But I think if you really were paying attention to the leaks and kind of looked at what was going on and stuff, it was pretty clear what they were going for. And I think if you look at the place this is in the hobby, like where this is going to land for people, I think it's kind of a cool in-between option. It's like I've been called a Mavic Mini 2 Plus, but it's probably more like an Air 2 Plus or something like that, you know? It's got like the, I don't know, it's going to let people, you know, there were a couple different videos of people's wives or family trying it. Like Bubby had his mom try it. And I thought those were really good perspectives because they also show like, this is just a normal DJI drone, but also it does other things. I don't know. I think it's a really cool intro into FPV for people. Even if maybe it doesn't push them into the hobby, people will understand what the word FPV means in a drone context.
I like that. I actually hadn't gotten there yet to the idea that the fact that this is a DJI drone with the word FPV in the title, that in a way is marketing for FPV that never existed before. People are like, what is FPV? The fact that people, just in the same way that DRL makes people aware that high performance racing drones exist, this could, you know, broaden the exposure of FPV. DJI wants, and I know this because they sent me a kind of a marketing handbook, which I, you know, glanced at and then promptly ignored because I felt like I should just say what I wanted to say. But DJI wants this to be positioned as the best way to get into FPV. And I'm not really, I mean, the number one, like I'm going to put up this album of crashes that you found, that you made. I'm not convinced this is just because of its durability. Like, it's so easy to use and it flies okay, especially for a beginner. But if you can't crash it, I don't see how it can be a good way for beginners to get into FPV.
Yeah, it seems like there's a good concept here. I think if this thing was made out of carbon fiber or in some way was more sturdy, I think this would be like the perfect intro to FPV for people because you could just flip it into freaking acro mode. And if you get scared, you hit a button. But unfortunately, I think that, you know, what we got is that a lot of people who are hardcore FPV people, you just all the drones crash. Like, you're never not going to crash your drone. Like, sometimes you crash because you fly and you go places. And if it doesn't have obstacle avoidance, it's going to crash eventually. And if it can't crash, that's unfortunate. And there are going to be people who don't understand that, or who go through all the prompts because they just want to have all the features unlocked or whatever. And then they slam into the tree and break it in the first 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's like easy to do on a Mavic Mini. That's really easy to do on something like this if you unlock it.
Yeah. Oh, if you unlock it, for sure. I mean, they make you jump through a bunch of hoops to unlock it, but that's kind of the point. I mean, if you don't unlock it, then the DJI FPV drone is basically a high-performance Mavic with a worse gimbal.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for that. I actually feel like the people who are most likely to get the most use out of this are not FPV pilots or maybe, people with a lot of money who want to get into FPV might buy this, crash it, break it. But it's going to be people who are sort of semi-pro and they want a high-performance Mavic and they're willing to give up a little bit of performance from the gimbal in order to get the performance out of the quad.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if this is something that like professional people on a set, Nurk talked about, he doesn't really think this is going to go in his bag. One of the reasons was because you're restricted where you can take off because it's a DJI drone. So if you are flying custom FPV drones to carry cameras, or if you're flying an FPV drone in general just to like carry a GoPro, you can fly wherever you want with that, regardless of what restrictions are there.
Right.
And maybe you have permission, or maybe you don't, or maybe it's gray area, or whatever you're doing. But this just doesn't let you make that choice.
Nico Del Rey says, if you crash your camera drone, you're doing something wrong. If you don't crash your FPV drone, you're doing something wrong. Bingo. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. I have to say, I have to hand it to DJI because I am a DJI shill. So I'm obligated. I have to hand it to DJI. When I first flew this thing, I was like, it's 800 grams. It's going to fly like crap. And I put it into acro mode and I was just like, send it. And I started slinging it around and I was like, oh, like for an 800-gram quadcopter, it acros shockingly well. And the tune is not perfect. You'll get prop wash oscillation, but I was actually pretty freaking impressed with what they were able to do. Like 10-minute flight time, reasonable handling, not great handling, but DJI clearly has some engineering background.
Yeah, so Kebab FPV, Bob put up a video and talked about he doesn't really think it's done yet, and he talks about the fact that DJI has the ability to update firmware on these things just like we do, and they can change the PID tune with the flash, with the new firmware. They can add features and fix things and change maneuverability and adjust features and sensitivity, pretty easily on these things, and they're basically all the same build. So it's very easy for them to get the same feel out of these quads. So I think that'll be interesting to see if these things are out in the wild, a bunch of people are testing them, and they find out like, oh, we need to adjust these things, and everybody gets a flash, and suddenly it flies, 20% better, or you get 10% more battery life or whatever. That's definitely something that seems somewhat appealing for those people.
Richard wants to know, does it acro like a 7-inch? No. To really get good like freestyle performance out of an 800, 900 gram quad, I think 6 or 7-inch props are ideal. They're 5.3. The prop is like 5.32 something, so it's a 5.3 inch prop. It doesn't handle like a 7-inch, and it's not going to do snaps. It's not going to corner like something with bigger props. It's too heavy for that. I'm just saying that for what it is, it flies surprisingly good. It definitely feels heavy. So there's a lot of questions that people have about compatibility with other things. One of the questions that came in earlier in the stream is apparently GetFPV said that the V2 controller is compatible with the original Air Unit and Vista. And a lot of people are wondering about compatibility. This controller, people are almost more excited about the controller than they are about the freaking drone. I don't think it's compatible. I heard that rumor. I tried to bind this to an Air Unit. It didn't bind. Do you know anything about that, Blunty?
Yeah, my understanding it is not compatible from everyone I've talked to. I don't know if it's like firmware mismatches or things like that, or what exactly is going on, but as far as I've seen, there is no current ability to bind with the new controller.
Yeah. So this controller is for the DJI drone only. Yeah. In theory, I suppose they could unlock that in a future firmware update, but it doesn't seem like they would. That's not usually how DJI rolls. As far as compatibility goes, the V2 goggles are compatible with the Air Unit and the Vista. So you're fine there, which is good because the V2 goggles, the V1 goggles are kind of gone. What about the 1200 milliwatt hack? Blunty, you know anything about that?
It sounds like that still works. From what I've heard from people, that is, on the firmwares that people are seeing, it does still work, but I'm not 100% certain on that because now there's two modes, right? There's essentially essentially you're going into the device menu and you're picking whether you want to be in DJI FPV mode or you want to be in drone mode. And you can only kind of do one or the other. And you switch back and forth and the goggles actually reboot. So I believe in DJI FPV mode, 1200 milliwatts still works. I am not sure about drone mode or how those power levels work.
Yeah, I have been trying to get a solid answer on that because, of course, that's a big question. Locrian in the Discord says 1200 milliwatt hack is working. Let me just double check that he's talking about what he's saying. Locrian, you have 1200 milliwatt working on the V2 goggles. What firmware version are you on, though? Just this afternoon, I flashed the goggles. So DJI released the actual release firmware. And what has been happening is that the firmware version for the V2 goggles has been like 050, 060, 070, whatever. I flashed 100, the actual release version. And when I did that, all the other versions disappeared from FPV Agent. So apparently they have a way, like normally you can flash back to older versions, but as soon as I flashed V100, all the older versions disappeared. Then I put it into FPV mode and I tried to do the 1200 milliwatt hack and it didn't work for me. Maybe my other people, FPV Lab also says V2 is working with a 1200 milliwatt hack.
Let's just ask a better question real quick. So like there are multiple versions that are on the V2s right now. So there's they shipped with the 10003 firmware. You could update to the 10004 firmware in the Assistant V2. The drone goggles that came with the drone shipped with 100066. So like if you have 0604 or 0603, I know that 1200 milliwatt works with those. I think we want to confirm that 0606 works with 1200 milliwatt.
0604 is the last version for the V1 goggles. And when that was put on the V2 goggles, it did work. I can confirm that.
So let me clarify that. It's not, I just want to, so 1.00.06 was the last version on the V1. They came out with an incremental update, which is 1000603, which came on the V2s, and 1000604, which was a brightness fix for the V2s.
I apologize. I said 0604 was for the V1 goggle. Yes. 0600 is for the V1 goggle, and we know that the 1200 milliwatt hack works there. And do we also know that it works on 0604?
Yes, 0604 it works on. What we're asking about is 0606, which are the ones that came with the drone, or that maybe you can update to now. I've not seen if the V2s can now update.
So Locrian says he's on 0604.
So is
FPV Lab also says he's on 0604. So the question is, if you actually, that 0604 is not the production firmware for the V2 goggles. It is a pre-release firmware that has gotten out into the wild. I don't know, because V2's got out in the wild. So the question is, once you flash to 0606, once you update to the production firmware, then does it still work? I did that this afternoon. It did not work. Maybe I'd like to, obviously I could have just screwed up the file or something dumb, but it didn't work for me. So Peak Mew says, I guess the real test would be if you have it working on 0604, Locrian has it working on 0604. Locrian, if you could do this before the end of the stream, we'll talk about it. I mean, no pressure. If you want to flash to 0606 and see if it goes away, that would be super cool. Personally, I'll say this, though. I was thrilled with the range of the DJI goggles when they were on 700 milliwatts. Then I found the 1200 milliwatt hack, and it got even better. But if I had to go back to 700 milliwatts, I'd be sad. But I wouldn't throw them in the trash.
Yeah, it looks like Jack Lanois says 1200 milliwatts still appears to work for me on 0606, so that is a good sign.
Oh yeah, good sign. Scott Abramacek says, should we not update if you want 1200 milliwatts? Well, that remains to be seen, Scott. We're still trying to figure out if it actually works or not. We need a little more data. Go ahead, Blunty.
Yeah, so I just think overall, I think it's interesting. So your takeaway from this, is this a drone you will fly ever?
No. No, but here's why. It's not as bad a no as you think. I bought a DJI Mavic Mini a while back because I thought, you know, we want to have a DJI drone to get those cool, sick gimbal shots, you know, like looking straight down at yourself and you fly up in the air and you spin around and you put that in your video and you look like Peter McKinnon. I used it for like 2 weeks and then I never picked it up again just because that's just not the kind of, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. I just didn't fit into my workflow. So if I had that kind of drone to do that kind of shot, maybe I'd use this because it certainly can do a lot of things. It's cool. But I'm not like the number one place this would fit in for me is in sport mode where you can fly fast and swoopy, but the gimbal is stabilizing the horizon. So the horizon is not pitching forward and back as you speed up and slow down. That's a real cool shot. And you can do that with the Mavic, but it's not as fast and it's not as maneuverable. So like that's one shot that this drone can do that is very difficult to do. Like you can do it with an FPV drone, but you have to use real steady go and it's a pain. I just don't think I need what it can deliver. Because if I want FPV, I'll just fly an FPV drone.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does look like we've got a couple more confirmations on the 1200 milliwatt. We had somebody else in chat confirm, and we've also got Helen Killer in the live stream chat. Says a 606 works with 1200 milliwatt.
Oh, so maybe it worked. Maybe I just screwed up somehow. I'll have to go back and look.
Well, yeah, I wonder if it matters like which mode you booted into, if you were in the drone mode instead of the FPV mode, or all that stuff.
I know if you're in the drone mode, it doesn't work because the drone mode, the SD card is just completely different. I'm sure it doesn't work if you're in the drone mode.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I guess I can't be 100% sure. What about, so we talked about compatibility. It's worth pointing out that the Goggles V2 are 100% compatible with the Air unit and the Vista. There's no issue there. So you're fine there. What else?
So a lot of people are asking about the video out on the app. So let's talk about what we know about that.
Okay.
So currently, if you hook up the drone and get everything going and you're in drone mode on the goggles and you plug that into the app does work for video out currently, correct?
Correct. I can verify that. Like any other DJI drone. Like you see the OSD on your phone, you can even go into the menu and change some of the settings on the drone.
Yeah. So it seems like once you flip that into DJI FPV mode, the app no longer sees those V2 goggles. And that means that it is, currently we have no video out on V2 or V1 with the new app, with the new firmware. Yeah.
And I was thinking about this today, and I asked my DJI contact, what's Ken Heron is trying to call me. I'm going to decline the call. I would love to answer him on the live stream, but let me just ping him real quick and tell him I'm on a live stream.
Maybe he knows.
Maybe he knows a thing or two. Anyway. My contact at DJI said there will be video out via... I asked, are we going to get HDMI out? USB to HDMI is what I actually asked. And he said, well, I don't know about that, but there will be USB out to an app on the smartphone. And I said, oh, cool. He never actually said it would work with the Air unit and the Vista. I just assumed.
Yeah, that was my
concern.
Maybe
he meant it only, and I just never asked.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was my concern because, like we talked about, they're splitting into two modes. So if one links and one doesn't, that's unfortunate. But, all we can do is basically at this point is hope for a new firmware, hope for changes on that and hope they do make some things. There are some weird sub things on a couple of the different pages on DJI's website that maybe indicate that there'd be video coming, or maybe they're just talking about the same video that's already there. It's not super clear at this point. So. Unfortunately,
Renegade FPV wants to know, and other people are saying, so are the V2 goggles basically a waste of money if you're not flying the drone? I would like to point out that I have been saying for at least a month, if you fly FPV, there is no compelling reason to go to the V2 goggle. And then I talk about the USB out as a potential, that DJI says they're going to do it, but I would just like to point out, I've been trying to steer you guys the right direction. Before the goggles came out, I tried to steer you guys the right direction, even while not violating my NDA. Then after they came out, I still tried to steer you the right direction. Not everybody got the message, and but I would just like to, I don't know, just toot my own horn, I guess. Sorry.
So let's talk about the difference that we do know about, that Hugo has found out about.
Who is Hugo, for people who don't know?
Hugo is, I don't want to say the wrong name.
True RC, right?
True RC, okay, yeah. I just definitely didn't want to say the wrong name. Hugo from True RC did some testing on the antennas, and he has determined that he thinks they are linear monopole, not LHCP. And that might affect your performance on the drone.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's just the antenna, so you could change them. But it does mean that it's possibly going to maybe be better at multipathing or something, but worse at like a range, or depending on the way the drone is turned, or the quads are turned, or if you're like flying it with an air unit and your air unit is LHCP and now your antennas are linear monopole. I think those are all things to consider.
That's exactly the thing that jumped out to me, because number one, the V2 antennas are dual band. They're 2.4 and 5 gigahertz tuned. And that means that they're going to be worse than an antenna that's tuned for a single band. So you're taking a performance hit there because the V2 antennas are dual band. And now you're taking another performance hit because you presumably have circular polarized antennas on your drone if you have an air unit. But according to Hugo, these are linear polarized antennas on the goggle, which is another like 3 dB of loss. I think it's potentially, we could see reduced range, significantly reduced range. That could be as much as like 6 dB of loss, which is a fair amount. Reduced range between the air unit and the Vista and the V2 goggles with the stock antennas.
Yep. And then the other thing that, we talked about, I think last week, is just that it does look like if you're wearing the goggle, the bottom left and the top right antenna are RX only. So they will only receive a signal, which is different than the original V1s, where 3 of them would do RX and TX together. Now only 2 of them are doing RX and TX together. So I would look out for antenna testing on the V2s and make sure you're keeping an eye out, because that may end up being a different situation than the V1s. I think a lot of people in the V1s were putting antenna patches across the top. Yeah. And now it's possible that you might want to do a diagonal on those patches.
And we really need a test. Maybe I'll do the test, but probably someone will beat me to it. Maybe somebody like RC Shim will do the test to find out which is the best performance. The other thing to keep in mind about the antennas is that if you're using them with the air unit and the Vista, then it doesn't matter. In fact, if I was going to use the DJI V2 goggles with the air unit and the Vista, I absolutely would trade out the stock antennas for aftermarket, because the aftermarket antennas are going to be 5 gig only, and they will not have that dual band characteristic. If you're going to be using it with the FPV drone, you still could have 5 gig only antennas. You just would not use the 2.4 gig channels, and you'd have reduced range, but probably more range than you really need. Yeah. Go ahead.
So is it clear? Do we know when it switches to 2.4 or 5.8, or if it's always dual banding, or do we know anything about that?
So when you do the channel selection, the channel selection is set to auto by default. If you go into the menu, you can force it to a channel. And when you pick a channel, you can pick either a 2.4 or a 5 gig channel. And you simply pick a channel number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So people have speculated like that the controller is doing 2.4 gig and the goggles are doing 5 gig. That's not consistent with the settings I see in the goggle, where you just pick a single channel. And I think like the V1, where the controller and the goggles are always on the same channel, I assume that the V2 works the same way. And if you're using 2.4 gig, you get more range, because lower frequency, you tend to get more range.
Yeah, you typically, in theory, get lower bit rate, but more range.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something. Fly High FPV says, well, I wish Joshua wouldn't have said anything at all if he didn't know for sure. Kind of feel like we were tricked into believing the V2s had video out. Fly High, it's very difficult to walk the sort of ethical line. Like, I don't want to mislead you into acting on bad information, but I also want to provide value to you by giving you preliminary information that you can maybe use to make a smart decision. Um, I'm gonna tell a little story that may get me in trouble, but hopefully it won't. The day that I learned that the V2 goggles might have video out, I had two V1 goggles, and I thought, you know what? There's no reason for me to have two V1 goggles. And I sold my V1 goggles to a guy, a local guy here in Knoxville. Whenever I sell products, I never try to like rip people off. I always try to give people a really good price so that they don't go out and say, Bardwell ripped me off. So, it's not like I tried to stiff him because I knew the V2 were coming. I sold the V1s, and I said in my Discord, I said, guys, I think I'm going to sell my V1 goggles today. I don't think I need two V1 goggles. That was all I said. But I'm always trying, because, I wasn't able to give proprietary information, but I still wanted to try it. If anybody was hearing what I was putting down, maybe they would figure it out. And I feel like what I said was, DJI tells me that they will have USB out to a smartphone app on release day. That is a 100% true statement. Does that mean it will happen? DJI told me that it will happen. You can decide if you believe them. I'm just telling you what they said. And you got to be able to read between the lines there if you choose to act on that information. That's what I would say. We have more confirmation of the 606 firmware with 1200 milliwatt. That's good news. Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it perfectly well. I think that, one of the things to remember in a case like this where, you get limited information, you've got leaks from here, and you get information from there, and some's real and some's not, and some's from different sources. And, people just have the information they do. So if you're taking leaked information from a source, you just have to take it with the face value that you see. It is what it is. Like sometimes, you'll learn things about the goggles. Like the goggles have two modes. So there was a video out in one of the modes, but not the other. Well, if you knew about both of the modes at that time, you would have known that was a possibility. It's just one of those things where it's not possible to feasibly understand all the things. So you either get no information or you get what can be shared. And I think most people would prefer to see what can be shared in some way,
Yeah. In every case, when I was talking about these products before the release, I want to be ethical and honorable and fully uphold the spirit, not just the letter, but the spirit of the NDA. At the same time, I want to give you as much information as I can while still honoring the spirit of the NDA. So, I always tried to make sure my statements were accurate and complete. There was always a potential that someone would misread them, but I think that I would rather be putting that information out there so the people could act on it as much as they can. Drib is in the chat. Hello, Drib. Let's move on. We got two more topics. We thought we were going to have a short stream, but I knew we would be able to talk about the DJI drone as long as possible. We've got another one here. This relates to the motion controller. I actually have one here. It was not in my review because this is a pre-release one, and there was something funky about the firmware. And the first thing I did when I went to review it was I plugged it in and I updated the firmware. And it turns out that on this pre-release one, if you do that, you brick it. There's a secret button push that I was supposed to know to do. I didn't. There's a video. I guess I didn't get the video. Maybe someone sent it to me and I missed it. And if you don't do the secret button push on this pre-release one, you brick it. So, but this motion controller, someone's suing them about it?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm not really sure. I don't know. We'll see how this shakes out. But basically, a Minnesota-based company called QFO Labs is filing a patent infringement lawsuit. However, they're filing it on behalf, they're sending it to Motion Pilot, which Motion Pilot that we talked about a month or two ago as a different kind of motion control solution. But it seems like Motion Pilot has a license agreement with DJI to do this. I don't know. If you look in the history of QFO Labs, which I did a little bit, it seems like QFO Labs is a patent troll. And I believe what this is just patent troll stuff, where they're taking a similar patent that they think can cover it and will actually, try to cover it. But these are the same guys, I believe, who who've taken a couple other companies in these categories to task, and I don't believe they've won any of those court cases.
Yeah. Okay. So if people are unable to buy the motion controller, it may be, in the USA at least, it may be related to this lawsuit. They may not want to sell it until the lawsuit's resolved.
Back in 2017, they sued Parrot. They were trying to get Parrot to take some drones off the shelf. Parrot ended up suing them back because it was not a violation of the patent. So I would expect this is a patent troll.
Sorry, I'm answering questions in the chat. Sorry to type over you.
No problem.
Well, it's interesting to say, oh, there's this patent challenge, but one way or another, someone will pay someone some money and then it'll go away, or it'll get thrown out. They'll just pay it away. All righty, good. We got one more. We always try to close on kind of an interesting or unusual one.
Real quick, I bet we have a bunch of new DJI goggle owners in the chat. And I wanted to give a quick PSA to people who have the DJI goggles. If you are outside, turn your goggles upside down so that your lenses are facing the ground. This is a problem for all FPV goggles, but it seems to be real bad with DJI goggles. And I would just make sure that anybody who's new to this, you flip your goggles upside down and walk around with them so that the face of the goggles are up. And then the sun can't get in there, because you will very quickly, like we're talking seconds, you will put a burn mark in the screen. And it's real unfortunate to have your brand new drone or your brand new DJI V2 goggles get a burn mark in them and then you can't use them. So,
yeah, you see FPV pilots walking around with their goggles up on their forehead. And one of the reasons is that we look so cool when we do it. We love it. Another reason is just convenience, obviously. And another reason is that when they're on your forehead, the sun can't get in them and burn them. I cringe when I see people, like, they'll just be fly and they'll just put their goggles down. No one can see my desk. They'll just put their goggles down and they'll walk away, and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna burn. They're gonna burn. But then I don't want to be a freak and say anything. So definitely watch out for that.
Yeah, some people are saying lens protectors are a good idea. 3D printing some different solutions to put in there as a cover. Just making sure you're not exposed to them. I would also say, on your head, make sure if they're not fitting to your head well, sun can get in there too. So make sure they're nice.
Yeah. Seems like a long shot if they're up on your head. I've seen people wear them down around their neck, like FPV goggles. They'll hang around their neck. I personally know somebody whose goggles burned while they were hanging around their neck, because they're literally facing up and maybe your chin's covering them. But your head, I don't know if they burn while they're on my head.
They just don't fit.
Shiny.
I just don't fit my head very well. I could see bending over and
Maybe.
Anyway.
Maybe. It's possible. Anyway, good. We got one person. Edgar Hurtado says, great tip. I didn't know that. I usually wear them on my head. Yeah, they're probably going to be okay on your head, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's true for all goggles, VR goggles too. Anything with lenses like that. Adam Bostwick, proving you right, Blunty. He says, they were on my buddy's head. He bent over to put his props on, and they burnt in. I would have lost money. There you go.
Well,
all right.
Now you guys know. So
PSA.
Be careful with your goggles.
All right. Before we get this last one, Blunty, let me get some super chats. We got a couple super chats come in. Peter N, thank you for $5 and $5 again. Peter says, my 1 month jumper T18P factory reset out of nowhere. No warning. It wiped all my models. And now the gimbal stopped working and the slide buttons too. I don't know what happened there, Peter. Usually that means some kind of hardware problem. It could be a bad SD card. Probably not. I would probably try to reflash it. I have a video about how to unbrick your radio, and I would probably reflash it and cross my fingers that it came back to life. But you may have a hardware problem, then it may need a replacement main board or something.
Yeah, the other thing is popping out that, I don't know if you pop out that battery, the watch battery.
The coin cell inside.
The coin cell inside.
Yeah.
Sometimes
always worth doing. Take the whenever you have a problem like that, take the SD card out of the radio. If that doesn't fix it, open it up and take the coin cell out, then put it back in after 20 seconds. Sometimes that fixes it, and you could always try to reflash it. But if none of that works, it may be done. Let's see. 041009 Cyclone Nicola FD says Cyclone FPV unboxed, and his goggles came with 041009, not 006.
I assume that's on the like on the drone side of the firmware.
No.
Right? Because
I think 1009 is a pre-release. Those
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But the 101 was a drone side only update, right? Because the other side's still on 100606.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like it was probably the drone side that was on 041009, and then that updated to 1010.
Oh, okay.
That's what I would guess.
Yeah, the 1009 isn't something that he did an unboxing though, so they must have shipped with 1009. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish up. Blunty, we got this we got a drone that flies like a fly?
Yeah, actually like a fly. It's pretty cool. MIT is working on some new technology. They think that props are not good for cramped spaces. So they are developing small fly-like drones with carbon nanotubes on these soft actuators. They're like rubber cylinders with carbon nanotubes, and you just apply voltage, and they like have electrostatic force that like squeezes and pushes the rubber, and that causes them to beat. And they're like beating like 500 times a second right now, and they've got they've got them on a PID loop.
We've got a video here.
Right now, it looks like they're all tethered right now, but they are certainly a cool concept.
Unreal.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Unreal. I don't know how you even do that. It's pretty slick. And they got some video of it flying as well. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. It sounds like they're not generating a ton of thrust. That's why they're tethered, to get enough power to actually make it work. Then again, tethered drones certainly have a place in the world. Just because it's tethered doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, this seems like we're in the very early, like, hey, let's see if this even works kind of stage.
Yeah.
But super neat.
Yeah, really slick. I think it's guys over at MIT. Freaking crazy. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. We got a couple more super chats, by the way, that we got to get out. Jose Navarro, thanks for a $5 super chat. Did DJI not think of the unintended I crashed my DJI videos that are set to explode soon for making a warranty-based model drone? I mean, I don't know what their business model is with the DJI Fly, but I'm guessing that they are able to make money on it, because this was not going to be the first DJI drone that people crash the shit out of and lose. So people have been losing and crashing DJI drones for a long time, and DJI Insurance seems to still be making money for them. So probably that's not going to change, but I don't know. Scott Abramacek, thank you for $2 super chat. Well, it's distance outlast Tracer. Well, DJI's distance outlast Tracer. The DJI drone is supposed to go out to 10 kilometers. Tracer at 100 milliwatts, there was a test out past 20 kilometers. So I think Tracer will be fine. I don't think DJI is really going to get 10 kilometers in real life. So I think Tracer at full ludicrous power will be fine compared to DJI. LG, thank you for 59 Swedish kroner, I believe. I have an X9D and I want to start flying Crossfire. Should I get the Tango 2? I think the X9D is so heavy. I'm a hybrid pincher with big hands. If you intend to fly Crossfire and you're okay with the form factor of the Tango 2 is a great radio. Not everybody likes the game controller style radio though. If you have big hands, you may be happier with a bigger radio, but you don't like the weight. Are you using a neck strap? Because definitely use a neck strap. Last one, Mindless FPV. Thank you for $5. No, sorry, 2 more. We're just going to be here all night, Blunty. Mindless FPV, thanks for $5. 6-year FPV anniversary. Started March 2015. Is that me or you?
Oh.
Did I start FPV in March 2015, or did you?
It wasn't.
I mean, that's about right. It's about right for me. Well, we're both together, Mindless FPV. Congratulations. Dan Zabinski, thanks for a $5 super chat. Any word on DJI firmware updates that will add OSD elements? No, Dan. I desperately hope that now that the FPV drone is out, they will go back to their previous pace of development. They were cranking out updates every couple months there was a new update with great features. Then it all came to a screeching halt. Before it did, they gave us 50 megabits per second mode, so I can't complain because that's a damn fine thing. I hope that they will continue making improvements and like adding OSD elements and other things. We'll have to see though. We just have to see.
Yeah, in December there was a rumor, like there was an email from a DJI rep that there was going to be a beta firmware for the DJI Air unit in March to fix the SD card slow issue.
Oh.
So to me that like shows that like they are targeting like, hey, March, April, we're going to be working on new firmware for the old equipment. I don't, that kind of fits the timeline. Maybe that got pushed back based on everything we saw with shortages and when the drone actually came out. But I would start to look for new firmwares in the next couple months, and hopefully we'll start to see them.
Yeah, I hope so. You're absolutely right. The very next thing they need to fix is the slow SD card error. It's a big problem for people who have Air units. So if they don't fix that, then I don't know what they're going to fix. We'll have to see. And that is a big thing that's up in the air, Blunty, as we close out the show, is what is the future of the V1 goggle? DJI usually does a pretty good job of supporting their older products. They don't just quit, but what is the future of the V1 goggle? What is the future of the Air unit and the Vista? Is a 2.4 gigahertz Air unit coming out? There's no indication of that, by the way.
Is there a new Vista? Is there a new Vista coming out? There's no indication of that either, but I don't think there was when the first one came out either. So.
Right. I mean, for all the leaks and stupid delayed rollout, I'm gonna. I guess it's all public now. The first date I heard for the drone being released was in January, and then there was like, no, it's been pushed back. And it was like, no, it's been pushed back. I have no idea why, but this release was just so weirdly uncoordinated for DJI. Usually it's just like you maybe hear one or two leaks and then boom, the product's there. So we'll have to see what's coming. We don't know. Oh, I got one more. I'm so sorry. I got a $20 super chat. I can't blow that off. Thank you, Drones Unlimited, for a $20 super chat. Your crash of the DJI FPV drone was hilarious but necessary. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much. There was a lot of time that went into that video, but I'm also so proud of it. I've watched that video 4 or 5 times, just been like, oh yeah, this is a good edit, boy. If we flew your JB logo under a large drone, would you show it in any of your pages, perhaps? Regardless, thanks for what you do. I don't know. What? Maybe. I don't know. I couldn't rule it out. Okay. That's
cool.
Thank you guys for coming out. Blunty, you've got a YouTube channel. It's linked in the video description.
Yes, it's Blunty. Yeah. Hopefully I'll be streaming tomorrow. I've been streaming on and off, kind of missing some streams and stuff. So, hey, it is what it is. Yeah. The scheduled streaming things don't work for me. I'm kind of going random streams sometimes, but
oof. People gotta subscribe and hit that notification bell so they know when you start streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, subscribe to Joshua Bardwell down right below this video. Subscribe and like the video, or dislike if you don't like the video. And then also in the description, I don't know if we mention that every time, but there's always show notes with everything that we've talked about with timestamps that will be added. So. Oh, one thing we didn't mention real quick, 507 RC mentions, is that the goggles have ADS-B. Did you see any planes while you were flying them?
I did not.
That's actually a question I have. It's like, when did they show up? Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. I'm not able to verify that. But they're supposed to show the location of the incoming plane in the goggle, just like the home arrow. So that's pretty slick.
Yeah. Cool.
All righty. Well, we will see you guys back here next week, 6 o'clock Eastern time on a Tuesday, with all the news that happens in FPV. If you guys have any suggestions for stuff you think that people need to know about, email it to news@fpvknowitall.com. Link is right there on the page. And hopefully no more DJI content for a little while.
Yes. At least no more leaks.
No more leaks for sure. All right, guys. That's going to do it. Happy flying, y'all. See you next time.
Later, guys.